back. Welcome to Print Your Games podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Jeffrey J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. What you been up to lately? Print anything cool? Doing anything fun projects?
I have been looking at big robots.
Like big robots? I love
Yeah,
big robots.
yeah. So I don't know if you're this old, because you're probably not this old. When I say Shogun Warriors, does that mean anything to you? I thought it might not.
Oh, do you mean like the American re-release of Knights of the Zodiac from 1993?
No, I mean it's an American re-release, but it's really old, like really old. And mostly comic book. Though they did do some animated stuff, but it was one of the earlier big old robot things, and it's probably
stall for time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna grab a prop.
No problem. But that was kind of the beginning of my love of the big old robot genre, right? These were big mechs that had kind of a lightly mystical whatever resonance. They also tied to martial arts. They were massive, ridiculously scaled and somewhat inconsistently portrayed giant robots. And I loved them. Very quickly thereafter, my PBS station, this is how random Utah was back in the day. My PBS station started just adding whatever content they could find to fill our airtime, and I ended up watching the original like Robotech and Zentridi and all that stuff. Like that was on public access TV in Utah.
Oh wow, that's weird
right?
to see it in public access, but I can kind of dig it. Like for me, Robotech have many gaming love, like the old Palladium Macross and Robotech RPGs. I've played many hours of those. They're much beloved old games that are not published anymore for very dramatic industry reasons.
Yeah.
And
but then, if you like, go ahead.
But hey, there are new modern versions of those games, like the new Robotech RPG. I don't know if you've played it, but it is really fun because it kind of embraced the craziness that was this anime, where it is part mecha battle, part drama, part pop idol show, and it embraces all three of these aspects. So you have like your spy thriller, and the way it does this is that your character has a whole bunch of stats, but every single special skill is usable in all three versions of the action. So like even if you are like a commander who's stuck on the bridge, you've got all these useful stats that's in like the Battlestar Galactica intrigue section of who's the traitor, how can I stop the rebellion on our ship in time to defeat the enemy who's going to invade us stuff. But then those very same stuff is like, boom, when the battle starts and the pilots go out and they're piloting their mech, the person that's on the bridge rolls for the support NPCs in the battle and using their stats. And then like during the social situations, they have their own thing going on there. And the pilots like can use their like a cool temper skill to also like woo people during the social scenes, but it manages to like lower their shot penalties during the fight. And it's like every single skill applies to every single aspect of play, and it was just like a really brilliant way of like embracing the craziness that is that very mixed genre and keeping all characters relevant.
So Blasted Samaflange has feelings here, hates Palladium, have words, but Strange Machine Games Robotech RPG, is that the same one you're talking about?
That's the one I'm talking about. It's so cool.
Very cool, because I was actually going to say, if you missed Palladium's nightmare of Robotech, you still can just play a mech-based version of Rifts, and you can still have all the drama of all the bad role design stuff, or you can also play the Savage Worlds version of Rifts and still have that genre as well, and still have your glitter boys and your big shiny mecha. That could still be a thing. And I guess one of the things I'm getting at for a lot of these games, though, is they don't have a lot of miniature support. And a lot of them, don't even try, right? So you get in these things, and I remember back when we were playing, it's funny you mentioned Palladium, because we played, do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, and that became our gateway drug into Rifts. And Rifts had all the things, right? That's the whole point of it. You get the crazy, Ninja Turtle mutants, but you also get big shiny robots. And we had this era where we were like, here's my Transformer on when we were playing, or here's my Gundam from the store, and suddenly start playing with relatively expensive model kits. And I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm suddenly like, hey, wait a second. We have the solve here in our hobby to actually go back to these games or pick up something new. Let's say you could try making Palladium miniatures. They'll sue you. Yikes. That was for Blasted Sabotage. I'm not sure that's true, but I would always, anybody's IP, I would be very careful of. But kind of circling back here, we have our Magic Goo Toys, and our Magic Goo Toys can, of course, reopen these like old vaults. And like here I am thinking I could run a Shogun Warrior RPG if I wanted to now, and probably even find models that are pretty close, or Gundam or whatever. Anyway, have you ever tried anything like that?
No. I mean, I've enjoyed the fact that 3D printing lets me do very specific things for my games. I've never gone into the old Palladium stuff because my hatred for the Palladium system is well known and shouted from the rooftops. And I understand other people really enjoy that system.
It was bad.
And I'm glad that people enjoy things, and I'm never going to shame anybody for enjoying things. Because you're right, because Rifts has everything except game balance.
Oh yeah, it was the very definition of splat book go burr, right? Like if you weren't buying the newest, shiniest, South American Monster Hunter, whatever, what were they called? OCCs? I forget. Like, and if you weren't like, gosh, even the fact that you could make characters, even in the core rules, you're an NDC creature and you're a normal DC, DC creature. So you had party members who could friendly fire one shot other people in their group.
Oh dear.
And we're not talking first level D&D characters. We're talking like high level characters that could paste other high level characters on accident. And that's, not even getting into the weird skills distribution and percentage basis and other dramas.
Yeah. But you are right though that now that we have access to 3D printing, and you've heard my rant a little bit recently how like there isn't a sci-fi genre. There's like a billion different subgenres that are completely visually distinct from each other. But thanks to 3D printing, we do have access to a whole lot of interpretations of those genres. And Papapskull specifically is a great place to turn if you want to like embrace that anime mecha craziness, because they've done several cyberpunk adjacent and mecha Gundam-y adjacent model kits and model sets to just like populate exactly the feel that you want for those sorts of games. And like everything from just like the troops to some like really cool freaking robots and stuff to decorate it to like that's just Wing Gundam with a different head, basically.
Right.
And it would not take much to find an appropriate Wing Gundam head to fix that problem. And that's not even talking about fan art, because there is so much like Gundam inspired fan art and Robotech inspired fan art out there that you can then like very easily print to the right scale you need and then just start kit bashing it. I mean, like, this is basically an anime mecha villain right here that they've got like just corporate stuff with cyber tech stuff around it and a mean snarl, and of course glasses that you have to just like pitch up when you are about to engage in your evil monologue. Yeah. And this is just like one set that I found.
The Cyborg Trooper things are really cool.
Yeah, and they've got like 3 different sets of this stuff available. So like they've absolutely But they're not the only ones. Like if you just go looking for very specific stuff, just need to just type in what your inspiration is, and you will find close enough STLs and stuff to get a game going in the traditional sense. And you're also going to find like a whole bunch of stuff to like the opposite of that when you go into that, because if I don't know if you've seen like the Gundam 3D printing community is large and very very thorough in what
Mm-hmm.
is available there, because like obscure weapon that appears in 2 frames of one anime, they'll have a 3D printing mod kit for the Bandai model, so that you can just like add that to your model when you're putting it together and things like that.
See, and I'm totally here for that, like both from just the adjacency of like your modeling and your art stuff, but also, that's one of the problems, going even back to like, the 40K part of the gaming minis hobby, representative models being a thing. If you're going to want that for your character when you're making, let's say we are playing some sort of, Robotech based or other big Gundam based RPG, to have that ability to just go get that exact thing, or to go get, the exact piece from the Reaper Mini or whatever it is, and the plasma scythe that you want. Because how many times has someone said, "Oh, my mech is going to look like this, but it's going to have this thing more like this one from like." I've been really into what's it called? Is it Genlock? Have you watched that much?
No, I've not watched Genlock yet.
I'm
Is
not
it
sure
good?
we're even gonna get the series finished because Rooster Teeth's been having some stuff since they got bought.
Oh, okay.
But general premise is that you ghost into your machine, and so like your body's in a creche, your mind projects out, and like then you're in your machine for a while, and so you get like really really Genlock. It's like you're completely zero reaction time movement of your mech. And of course, like, you get a character who gets killed, his body gets killed while he's fused, so he's literally like haunting his mech, and like all the dramas. He has no body, blah blah blah. It's fantastic stuff if you're into that. But the idea that their mechs are highly highly customized, and so if you wanted that feel, you would want to probably kit bash your mech out and getting all these pieces that are, possibly even just from model kits, and kind of moving into that terrain of, is this a model, is it a mini, doesn't matter even anymore, I'm not sure. And just that's one of the things I would want to pick your brain about, because you do both, right?
Yeah, I do a lot of model kits and stuff, and I love me my Gundam kits. I buy lots of the Bandai kits. This is one I'm putting together soon. It's the Master Grade Barbados.
Move it just a little to the other side, because like your background blurred it. He's a big boy.
He's a
pretty
big boy. This is the Master Grade Barbados, which is
Mhm.
1/100 scale, which is not quite big enough to be in scale with our 28 millimeter miniatures, but it's certainly big enough to have fun on the shelf.
How big do you think that looks? Like it when it's put together. Like how tall is it roughly?
Oh, it's going to be about 8 inches to 10 inches tall.
And you're just saying it's not appropriate because if you were actually doing the exact scaling from the cartoon,
yes, if you wanted the Gundam to be in scale with a 28 millimeter model,
then
you
he's too
need to
small.
instead build a perfect grade, which they do sell. Unfortunately, perfect grades are the biggest of the one. Okay, technically they do 1 or 2 promo mechs that are bigger than their perfect scale, but perfect scale is kind of like when you're involved in the Gundam model kit hobby, the Gunpla hobby, Gundam plastic model kits, Gunpla. Like you usually are recommended to start in your high grades and build a couple of high grades, see if you like the hobby, upgrade, like graduate into master grade. And kind of master grade is kind of where most people in the hobby kind of, that's their zone. Like it's the kits are complex enough to have like lots of cool detail. Doesn't have to rely on stickers as much to get some of that detail. And also have like individual articulated fingers and all the cool little transformy things that whatever the model would have had in the show has, and all that. Like these kits are gorgeous, awesome, amazing, and fun. And absolutely, if you've never built a Gundam model kit, go get one and do it. They're also very cheap. A high grade of some of the popular kits are only like $15 in at your local hobby store to get going, and so it's relatively accessible. And they do make cool game pieces if you want to use them as like game pieces. I know quite many one-page rules players that play the Titan Lords, which are like, instead of like the Warhammer walking Titan cathedral things, they're just like, nah, it's gonna be Gundams. And that's fun.
Yeah.
And then eventually you graduate to the peak of the peak is like, you've like reached peak gunpla hobby ascension when you complete your first perfect grade. But a perfect grade it's gonna be like very big tall model, like over a foot tall, lots of hundreds and hundreds of pieces. It's going to take you several days to build this kit. And also they cost like $200.
Oh yeah.
And some of the bigger, more complicated ones can cost $300. There's one that is a kit that I'm drooling over. It's just like, one day I will buy you. That is $400, but it is Unicorn, which is a Gundam that has like a complete transformation. Like it has a normal version, and then like all the panels split open, and like head freaking transforms, and like things start sprouting out of its back, and then between all the panels is like all this clear stuff that's supposed to glow, and the $400 of the kit comes with like LEDs to line the inside so that when you do transform it, it does glow.
That's pretty cool. Do you think that's the sort of thing, like, how ambitious would it be to print that?
You could easily print it. It would be a lot of work, because to do it right, you're going to want to print each of the pieces individually. And then there is lots of printable Gundam kits, like what would have traditionally been garage kits. Which, if you're not familiar with, you familiar with what a garage kit is?
No.
Okay, so when you get into like the real independent model kit scene, you get what they're called garage kits, because they're just made by somebody in their garage, but like super nerdy cool details, like very slow print run kits that you have to like mail order, and then they send them out to you, and they're very funny. They're very cool. Adam Savage over on Tested has several videos about garage kits where he goes through them, and it's absolutely worth watching. I'll include some of them in the show links. They're very fascinating. And so the Gundam community also has like a whole bunch of garage kits, which is like either whole new Gundams that never existed before, or like that just never got print runs by Bandai, or like modification kits that you add to existing Gundams to like either level up their details or turn one Gundam into a different Gundam. And now that 3D printing is like really big in a big way, the community mostly seems to have centered around cults. So if you go to cults and search for Gundam, you're going to find thousands of printable kits, either whole new Gundams or like add-on parts for Gundams, weapons, all sorts of very fun stuff over there. To just like really level things up, or like have the full garage kit experience, etc. And of course, this isn't too far away from the Warhammer 40K fans that print their own Titans, like the big boy Titans.
Right. Well, we've seen a few of those, and we've also seen people modify existing ones too. And I think I'm just kind of curious about like that adjacency. Like, is this too much to do for a game? And, my gut says yes, but at the same time, there's part of me that thinks if you were playing, because, like, let's be honest, we play D&D, right? And we have that character, like, Tezo right now is what? He's, like, just hit 5th level?
Yeah, we just leveled up to 5.
Right. So if we keep playing, because it's been a few months now, we keep playing at that pace, and, we're doing bi-weekly, he's probably going to be around for a couple of years. So, like, if you're printing, we're not playing physically, so this is kind of hyperbole a little, but not that much. If we were doing this as a physical game, though, I bet you'd print a little guy for him.
Yeah,
every few months, right? And so the question becomes like, is it doable to print the mech that you start with certain ways and then like mod your mech, or do you reprint it, or do you do it just integrated for battle, so you don't have to worry about all the fiddly bits and kit bash it, build the mecha kit in your slicer, and then fuse it so that you can just print out one boy for like a tabletop purpose. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around that because more and more we talk about how underserved the tech and sci-fi gaming is, and so I'm just like, or is it just easier to go to somebody like Papskill and like print, Battle Mecha 3 with just like 5 pieces? I don't know.
So the thing is like, there's no right answer to that question because those are all valid options and all of them have support in the community. If it was me, I would go buy the model kits themselves that have the major parts I need and then 3D print the missing parts I needed to customize it, because the kits themselves are so gosh darn cheap.
Right. So you're saying
if you're not going for perfect grades, then they're just so gosh darn cheap.
Right. And
that
you said,
you can
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, they can just get 2 or 3 of the kits by the time you bought a bottle of resin. And then I would save the 3D printing for the stuff that you can't just easily get just from a retail shop, and then just bash together exactly what I'm wanting. And because the cool thing about the Gundam kits is they come in with kit bashing in mind, so all the joints are exchangeable. So if you want to just put this thing's arm or this thing's weapon on that thing's body, it is trivial to do that.
Okay. Let's say we have a few more comments we haven't got to. Love hate feelings with mecha. Big stompy robots are cool, but they're so impractical. The size of mecha that isn't super huge would be viable at 15 millimeters scale. So you can stomp. I mean, it reminds me, because what's epic scale? What is epic scale? Really, really small.
6 millimeter.
Okay, so like I'm just saying, tiny. I've seen big robot stompies at tiny scales before. And I don't know, like there's part of me that wants the drama. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not a big GW guy, but when I go into the GW store and I look over and I see like the one, small Titan or whatever that they have out on the mini, and like everything else is just tiny, and there's this big guy, I'm like, ooh, it does things to me, and I'm not even that big into that army, right? So anyway, see ArtStation, someone's done a Gundam tabletop game. Okay.
There's been a few attempts over the years to do a Gundam tabletop game,
but they aren't selling the files. So if they're making the game and showing it on ArtStation, can you just go download it for free? I'm not sure. Tell me about that.
I don't know about this specific one myself, but I have seen this being pitched around a lot. The big problem with the Gundam tabletop scene is just licensing, and licensing with companies in Japan can sometimes get very difficult, unfortunately.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and Japan's copyright laws are extremely different than Western country copyright laws, so that's a thing that you have to navigate around.
Voxel Forge says that they also have some 15 millimeter mechs on Cults. Good to know. Yep. Warlord, Warhound. They're just doing a personal project, keeping it. Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know if you've ever seen SW5E, the website. It's a Star Wars fan project for 5th edition D&D. That thing is so comprehensive. So there's a lot of fan-driven. We don't ever intend to profit from things that are pretty freaking incredible in this sci-fi and sci-fantasy space. So I'm not really surprised to hear that.
There was also like a big hubbub a few years back about a Mass Effect fan RPG that was nominated for an Emmy, and it made
really
a big splash in the market because it's like, and ultimately they were disqualified because of the opinion that, like, listen, I love fan games and I want to support people doing fan games. There's nothing wrong with doing fan games, but they shouldn't be competing with actual games for industry awards, because they get to cheat. They get to skip so many steps that actual companies don't get to skip, like getting licensing, and also like fan games often will reuse official art without paying for it, and all that stuff. And that's fine when you're living in a fan art world of everything's being given away, but the second that you're entering actual quote unquote business with that, it's no longer competing on the fair thing. Also, that's the quickest way to attract the actual license holder to bring the hammer down and destroy your project. I've seen so many fan Nintendo games and other fan art games where it's like we're all living in happy go luckyville, and then boom, the Nintendo band hammer comes down as soon as it gets any amount of attention.
Yeah.
Oh boy. But like there's a lot of opportunity in 3D printing in the model space, because like we've talked about the Gundam stuff specifically, and like Colts is absolutely just covered up with really awesome stuff you can get for Gundam, where like, you know, missile pods and little plugs and decorations, alternate heads, alternate body. Like this is speaking of here for the kit I just had in my hand, like these are a bunch of conversion parts to convert this to a different version of this model that doesn't exist yet to purchase. So if I wanted to upgrade this to Barbados, which one is this? Is this Rex or is this? I forget which Barbados.
And they probably can't actually call it what it is, right?
Well, funny thing is, as long as it's because of
fan art,
because the fan art and the fact that they're not charging money for a lot of this,
really
they just get away with just calling it exactly what it is on Cults and stuff. And again, that's ultimately the Watts holder stuff to come around and do. Like here's another. There's like 8 different alternate weapons for the Barbados that I'm holding in my hands right now. It's just like right there. You can just get like all these for it, which is really cool. Also, they have like standalone models that can be printed from scratch, all that jazz. And you know, we talk a lot about like 3D printing stuff for games specifically, but I like to decorate my game room a lot too, and a cool looking game room helps I think get everybody in the mood to play. Like I've got like big ass dragons on the shelf over there that I, you know, technically I guess they qualify as game pieces, but how often do I actually pull them down off the shelf to use them?
I have you can't see it, but up there I have a whole bunch of like gargantuan sized dragons that are just kind of filling some shelves.
Yeah, the Colossal Red just hanging out there for the one day that I actually get to pull it down.
Don't have that many.
Oh, it's a fun mini.
I know.
It's got the little plastic straw fire.
That fire. Okay, here I love my friends, but one of my friends let his dog get a hold of that fire because it was that slightly because that's that kind of rubbery plastic cast for the translucent. Remember? I'm sure you own it, you've held it, you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
Well, it sure felt like a dog toy to the dog.
Oh no!
And the beautiful big ass red dragon's fire got chewed to pieces.
Oh no!
And so now he's a derpy dragon that just goes like all the time with the like he's blowing out the facial thing, and it's just I'm like, oh, that was such a pretty model, and now it's kind of ruined, and it makes me sad. But we could 3D print a replacement one if we wanted. He's never asked me to, though. Anyway.
If you were wanting to do some 3D printing for your Gundam addiction, because you're going to decorate your game room with Gundams or just your hobby room, I did pick out a few STLs specifically I think are a good thing for you.
Oh, okay. Hit me up.
Okay. One is display platforms. A lot of Gundam fans like to display their Gundams in like the engineering bay. And there's a few different STLs for that out there. This one I like the best because it displays the Gundam the best. This is Gundam Library Display Platform, a completely original model that is scaled to fit the Gundam. And of course, because it's 3D printed, you can rescale this to the different Gundam scales and be able to like display your Gundam like really cool in the hangar bay.
Is it articulated? Can you actually turn that?
Yes, so that it is.
I knew it.
Absolutely. This one is absolutely articulated. Also, you can get like the little crane trucks and various different and various different things to like decorate your hangar bays. This would also be cool for any sci-fi game. Both the hangar bay and the trucks would be very cool for a lot of sci-fi games. Because just look at the background where they've mounted this. Like that would be a very cool board to play some sci-fi games, like just industrial inside spaceship hangars.
Oh
With
yeah,
like the little equipment to move the heavy things around, and they've got like
and
places to
very
mount the
easily, if the
Gundams to it.
scale was right, this would be perfect for just like terrain that's a vehicle, right? Like,
Yeah. And a lot of this is just completely free too. Like, just download it and buy it.
am I seeing a lot of in those kits people just using colored resin and not even painting?
Yeah, a whole ton of that.
Yeah, interesting. So just do very, very specific pieces and then pop that in. Okay, we got another one. Modular display hanger.
Yeah.
Extension kit.
Yeah. So there's the base hanger kit, which is linked here. But I think it looks actually better if you just print 2 of them and use the extension to make it together. To do this, you could build an entire backdrop wall. Stuff. Also, this would just look good as like freestanding 40K terrain.
Yeah.
Like an industrial build.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Or, a mech game, and just have that be part of your terrain board too. Because, how many times have you seen that scene where they barely make it to the mechs in time to defend the ship or the station or whatever, and they're actually fighting in the hangar bay?
Mm-hmm.
That's a thing.
And this one I thought was super clever, because a lot of times in the Gundam hobby or model kit hobby of any variety, you want to airbrush to get very, very smooth paint jobs on the kits. And if you're going to get involved in like the model scene in any capacity, investing in an airbrush is like almost mandatory. And again, do not be afraid of airbrushes. Getting involved in airbrushing is actually pretty cheap these days. $30 will get you a basic starter kit and hand compressor, and that's all you need. You don't need more than that. And
I'm a big fan of those.
As I hold up my Iwata.
Yeah, it's fair. That's fair. But honestly, like the hand compressor thing they got is definitely better than my first is that master. Like that's still an improvement, and it's done just plenty good work.
And one of the first things you build when you're getting into the hobby is you cut up a whole bunch of cardboard into a brick so that you can stick the little skewers down into to let your paint dry. And they usually tell you to duct tape that together. But this is a 3D print for a little Principality of Zeon box that just holds the little cardboard corrugations in place.
And so
it's like your little drying rack is as nerdy as you are.
And that looks like FDM. Yes?
Yeah, this is going to be an FDM print.
Yeah. Wow.
I would resin print most of my Gundam stuff because you want the smooth lines and stuff.
Yeah.
But there are some stuff that is FDM printable because oftentimes I will be short a display stand, and just being able to, like on Thingiverse, there's a really cool action stand that is completely 3D printable and would not take very much time. You can just very quickly get a stand so you can get your Gundam posed perfectly. And this would take like 2 hours to print.
Yeah. And very, very low fill rate on something like that. So.
Oh yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff I think my question would be more about like, are you going to be shifting up the resin composition so that if you're doing snap fit model pieces, that they're not brittle enough that they would break?
Okay, so that becomes interesting.
Okay, let's hear this.
Ball jointed resin prints have not been super successful. There's a few kits out there for this, but the nature of most resins is rubbing parts against each other and the brittleness inherent into it. Not a great fit. There's been some talk of like some specialty resins made specifically for this. So I would personally avoid, this is another reason that I would go for the model kits and then print add-ons. I would personally avoid printing parts that needed to be socketed to a ball joint or a movable joint, and instead go for things like armor plating modifications and weapons and things that don't have to have that friction-based articulation.
Gotcha.
The FDM stand kit got away with it because it had gears and it's FDM, and FDM can handle that just fine. Resin, not so much.
So what do you think the hang up there is? Is it just the friction with the resin?
Yeah,
causing like problematic binding, or what is it?
it's that as you start to do use the joint, it's going to rub and dust pieces of it and eventually wear itself out, or it's going to be binded up and the brittleness of the resin will shatter.
Will
There
cause
are
break.
specialty resins that they're working on. I would check out Uncle Jesse's done a few videos on this very specific point,
Mm-hmm.
and it just like he's done several tests on this, and it's been mostly failure on the success failure track,
Okay.
but I would definitely go check out the Jungle Jesse videos if you want to actually like do
Have you
action
heard of
figures,
any?
postable stuff.
Have you heard of anybody using like a lubricant on the resin in the joint?
No, no, no. And they
Okay.
do make some specialty sprays in the miniature in the no in the action figure hobby space. They make some
Mhm.
special sprays that do protect and stiffen those joints so that they flex wonderfully. I haven't seen any tests with that, but this is getting like way down deep into nerdy rabbit holes that would require me to print some stuff that I've been advised to not bother printing. So
That's fair. That's fair. I mean,
yeah,
and you, like you said, if you're already feeling the kids the thing, I mean, if we're talking to this about a display piece, and you're just gonna have it like on your display thing and not really worry about it, there is no reason you couldn't print these things and just fuse the files and just
yeah,
have
yeah,
your pose locked, right?
yeah, for sure,
Other
for
than
sure.
the fact it's just not as fun to play with.
This is true.
But for using it as a game piece, maybe this is a better option. You know, you can have your Gundam Wing in its big action crazy pose and still make sure your verticality for a board is good, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Because you know me, I struggle trying to decide, is this an art piece, is this a playable piece, and
Mhm.
I think this particular one, because we're looking at an undersupported game niche with the sci-fi, take it with the giant robot and the mecha stuff, and then the huge community of art and sculpture and posables, like trying to get to that happy medium for a gameplay situation for me is something I'm very fascinated by, and I think I might take some of these experiments up, and you know me, I'm willing to fail really hard, so maybe I'll break all my joints and I'll tell you it was terrible eventually.
Awesome. Yeah, there's lots of options out there. So it was like, is it mostly Gundam models that have caught your interest lately?
Well, I think a lot of times you have players that are inspired certain ways, and so
Mm-hmm.
like where I come from, definitely like like an older, like I said, Shogun Warriors, Robotech, um,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of diverge into more specific anime. Like I like Razafon and like
Oh yeah.
um, I have a come at me if it's fine. Magic Knight Rayearth, I freaking love that show
There's
so
nothing
much.
wrong with Ray Earth.
And those are mechs, but it's magic, right? But like
Mm-hmm.
so like some of those things, people want their specific thing, right? And so when
Mm-hmm.
I talk to a lot of people when they're talking about sci-fi things, they're gonna mention Gundam, they're gonna mention Gatchaman, they're gonna mention whatever, and like they're gonna have their specific inspiration. And one of the things that this is something that took me forever to learn as a game master and someone who organizes events. Not everybody has time for the bespoke, baroque, perfected, this is my unique expression character. Somebody's like, they're going to be like, I want the Magic Knight Rare mech that Hikari had, but I want it to have a stylized head like a bull or whatever. You know what I mean? Like instead of like, they're going to do that thing. And so the question becomes, do I go back to the drawing board and try to sculpt or kit bash something out of whole cloth, or do I go get a model of that mech and try to just take the head and smack it on there? So like when I'm talking about Gundam or whatever the inspiration is, I'm talking about let's get something that like is an excellent starting point and then go from there, really. And with the scaling of 3D printing, I can have somebody who has a Gundam, and I can have somebody who has a Transformer based thing, and someone has their whatever. And with the right rule system, or if you're playing something generic like OPR or whatever, you can have them all in there.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I jump back to Genlock because it's really recent in my head how each of their mechs are so different. Maisie Williams. is one of the voice actors, and her mech is this bunny. It's this bunny robot, and it's amazing. And then you have somebody else who has like a total like tryhard samurai edge lord guy, and his is like the samurai whatever one, and somebody who has like a super sniper stealth one.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that these models look the same because the art style is the same, but really, if you were to take them in a game sense, you'd probably be sourcing them from multiple creators and just trying to push the look for your board. Like, you know, the things we talk about all the time, using your basing techniques and your painting techniques to make them look like they fit together, even though you're really looking at like, oh, that's clearly Transformer fan art, and that's really a Gundam fan art, and that's really a, you know, whatever kit bashed thing that, or something from Cyberforge that's just been scaled up, or whatever it is. You know, your actual game is going to be this Frankenstein's monster of IP. But for your players, who cares? You get the result you want and you get it fast. And you know, there are people that want to just play that thing. Um, uh, and you know, I'm never gonna take the time. Well, that's not true. I'm rarely going to take the time to watch an entire series of something to perfectly emulate that as a genre for a role playing game. I'm going to usually shoot down the middle of like 5 or 6 things. Like it's like when we talk about, you know, like I love Magic Guild games. So I'm Fairy Tale, Black Clover, all those things. You know, I'm going to shoot down the middle of all that and try to hit as much as possible in that vibe. I'm not going to try to make another, you know, X guild that's exactly recognizable of that. I would not paint my minis to look exactly like the, you know, the Black Bulls from Black Clover, right? I would switch it up. But you know, players are going to still come at it where their entry point is, and a lot of players' entry points are kind of, I don't want to say derivative because that has such a negative connotation, but they're inspired, right? Mm-hmm. Daikon 4 opening the RPG. I don't understand. Do you understand?
Nope, I don't understand. I have not seen that one. Blast the Salmon Flames. My apologies.
Please explain.
He has not extended that far.
Techo Toys has done a lot of work with some of the resins for mech toys. Oh, okay.
Thank you. That would help. That would definitely help. Because that's a very specific niche. Because if you were able, like the action figure customized kit bash community is just as passionate as all these other communities we've been talking about. But they have been stressed with the fact that most resins are not suited for this job. Like right now we're starting to get like specialty resins just for miniature gaming that works right. Mm-hmm. Because like the resins that I would want for a display piece are not the same resins that I would want for a gameplay piece. Because with a gameplay piece, I can settle for a little bit less crisp details because it's going to be handled and it's going to be dropped and it's going to be moved around. It's going to be bashed together with other models and stuff. Whereas a display piece is just going to, assuming perfect circumstances, sit in my little dust-proof display area looking pretty and being handled very gingerly whenever it is handled.
Right.
I'm thinking of like some of those Bowen statues from Marvel and stuff, like not even 3D printed, but just like how fragile and brittle those old resin pieces were. Like when I was running a comic book shop, did I break a Ghost Rider in half? Yes. Did I feel bad about the $300 statue suddenly going in the clearance bin? Yes.
So we got educated. Daikon 4 opening the RPG was the Japanese version of Transformers, but also specifically a convention trailer, looks like. Produced an animated opening that featured just about every popular IP of that era.
Interesting.
So it looks like, and since it was from a fan convention, they got away with it, sounds like maybe. And then somebody turned that into an RPG, or we're saying we need the RPG based off it, maybe is what we're saying. But I did not know that was a thing.
Yeah. I did not know, but there's some fun stuff I'm going to be Googling later.
The production team would go on to form Studio, is it Gainax?
Gainax? Oh my gosh. Are they Gainax? Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah,
that's infamous.
That's infamous. Uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
They're a wonderful studio responsible for a whole lot of beloved anime and the anime tropes. They're also, their name Gainaxing is a verb that means very bouncy.
I see. I see.
Mhm.
You don't need to say anything else.
Mhm.
My brain just went to that reincarnated as a slime, and
Ah,
and and a particular character is, I
that
suspect, is what we're.
yes, absolutely. That would
Okay.
absolutely apply.
All right.
Um,
Right. Let's move away
moving
from that.
on. Moving on. Um,
You were just
uh,
mashing every IP into an RPG. Yes. Gotcha. Gotcha. Makes sense.
yeah, and but like thinking about this, like these Gundam models and stuff, that also like led me down the rabbit hole of like what other cool models would I print that I wouldn't necessarily game with if I just wanted to decorate the game room on. And we kind of touched on this a little bit last episode when we were talking about Lord of the Print being renamed to Rescale Miniatures.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's like we said with the dragons, like they make these humongous, beautiful dragons, not exactly practical to play with, but like
Hmm.
look awesome on a shelf. Like if you go to any convention these days and you're going to see somebody with a merchant license for them selling their very big pretty dragons for very
Right.
big many dollars, and printing one of those yourself is just a great way to get a great display piece to decorate your game room. um, and like a lot of other producers like do that too. I know that for One Page Rules, we make a legendary model every single month, and usually the legendary model is not exactly practical to play with. Like it costs so many points in the game rules because it's like these big gigantic pieces that are like really only fieldable due to the game rules in like very high point games, but they're
Hmm.
just like very beautiful pieces to paint and put on the shelf. Like if your 12-inch your 12-inch tall on a putrid display base demon prince is
Yeah.
like a completely fun thing to have on your shelf to
Don't you
like
have like that
surround
big
with.
like graveyard avalanche monster thing?
Oh, I'm really proud of the team. I am really, really proud of the team. Okay, I don't like to talk about OPR stuff too much on the show about the cool stuff we're doing. But this is one I'm so proud of the team on that I have to make an exception for.
Okay.
Okay.
Go for it.
And
Let's do
that
it.
is the Vampire Lord on Stitched Horde model, which is this month's legendary. And it's exactly that. It is
Graveyard avalanche.
a wave, a tsunami of zombies bursting forth from a crypt and carrying along the vampire's coffin that he's just casually stepping out of. And it's just, this is like one of my favorite pieces the team's done in a while. And it's just covered in wonderful details. It has like a couple of human empire troops just running for their poor lives away
Yeah,
from this zombie wave.
I don't normally want to print a showpiece like this, but like the idea of dropping that as the Lich Lord or the Vampire Lord shows up.
Yeah. And just casually, there's a werewolf just going along for the ride.
Just surfing the corpse wave as it devours the soldiers.
And like, and then they, I think this was originally meant to be a display piece, but then they were like, you know what, we have to give it stats, and it's a
Mhm.
mount option for a vampire lord. It's like you go, what do I want? Horse, winged abomination, skeleton dragon, zombie tsunami. The official
Corpse
name is
wave.
Stitched Horde, but
Yeah, stitched. I mean, that tracks.
yeah, and like we put out these big display pieces like that in dioramas and stuff like that sometimes have removable pieces. Like the Jackal diorama is like this really cool sci-fi diorama you're meant to paint as a display piece, but like
Hmm.
it has sockets so that the three jackals on Beast Riders that are part of the diorama unslot from the diorama and can then be played on the game table and then put back.
See, that's
I've seen
that's
them.
amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah, and then there's other creators, like a lot of creators also do these like humongous centerpieces. Arkville and Games, of course, they do amazing stuff and bust and stuff. Um, Titan Troll, who is a friend of the show
Friend of the show. Yep. Yep.
for very long, has like busts included in every single one of their sets.
Hmm.
Definitely recommend you check them out if you like busts, especially like low fantasy stuff and like really detailed faces. Titan Troll, yeah, does really good stuff there. And we're actually starting to see a resurgence. Like for a little while, the bust scene kind of vanished. Loot Studios is still doing like the 72 millimeter and bust versions of a lot of their models. And Artisan Guild has started to release busts not only for their current models, but they're going back and like every single month you get a few busts from the current set and then legacy busts for old sets that never had busts. You'll get that. And usually they try to tie it in thematically. So like if they're releasing goblins this month, they'll go find an old goblin hero and make a bust of it. This time they're releasing halflings. And so they went and found some tree folk because these are halfling druids and rangers.
Okay,
so they went and found
cool.
some like tree folk and satyrs and made their busts into the new bust set to go along with it. I wish I had pictures, but Artisan Guild's not very good about their promo material being easily accessible, unfortunately.
Right. I think I was mentioning Daybreak has kind of some random ones this month. I'm glad they're still doing them, but they have bearmen, big werebear people, but our busts are not the werebear people. They are a bird person and a skelly boy, right? Skelly demon boy. But I mean, I remember the set. This again, it's kind of like you're saying with Artisan Guild. That's a throwback, I think, to an old one. And then I'm not sure if he was one or not. I mean, it's a cool little bust. I like it. But if you look at the set for the month, it is Big Barrow Boys.
Yeah, really
and they're
cool
awesome.
Bears.
They're awesome. Like that right there makes me want to play some sort of Arsenal. That one does look like the couple back looks like a hyena pretending to be a bear. I guess you could use these as flind or flind, however you want to say it, if you needed to, but I still like them as like, some sort of Arsenal barrow.
I've always wanted to play a werebear.
Yeah.
And like there's like lots of reasons that I haven't ever been able to because of like powers creep and various reasons there. Werebears have been traditionally in previous versions of D&D been fairly strong characters. A little bit over the normal player power curve, but thematically just being like I'm getting so angry that I am now a grizzly with a sword.
Now you could just play Blood Hunter if you're playing a 5e game and just call it good. For your lycanthrope form and just not make it a lycanthrope, make it a Ursonal critter.
And if you're
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. If you're what?
If you're wanting to go even into like the nerdier side of the busts that don't tie directly into some of the game pieces, like you have to bring up Photosmint. Like Photosmint is like prolific in the 3D printing scene for busts and statues and stuff, and a lot of fan stuff that ties into a lot of what we enjoy. Like this month, this Karlach bust that's just perfect.
So yeah, I don't know if we've talked about this. I am in fact playing 3 simultaneous Baldur's Gate 3 right now, and Karlach is the best girl. We do love her.
Yeah, so Photosmint does a lot of real. They're on Thangs right now, and you can sign up for a Thangs membership, get their new stuff.
You know what I would do with that?
There's ways to get their old stuff.
I would use translucent resin, and I would put some LEDs under that and do her Hellfire engine glowing. I would have to. That would be so cool.
Yeah, there's so many like gaming adjacent and nerd adjacent stuff that Photosmint does. Like really cool dragon heads, lots of Dark Souls stuff, Witch King stuff, Lord of the Rings stuff, Warhammer stuff. Like this. Like these are not meant to be game pieces, though. He has done some game pieces that you can get from his. I mean,
there's like there was a purple one back there that's definitely playable.
Yeah, these wolves. If you want some big old dire wolves, he has some 28 millimeter scale dire wolves that are meant to be play pieces. Right next to
Yoda,
Thor from from the God of War series.
Yeah, very cool. We're running out of time. Do you have any shout outs? Because I have like one I wanted to make sure because I missed it last week.
I want to shout out to a very cool thing that ties into a topic I want to talk about, but
Oh,
they're going to run out before it happens.
all right, all right.
Is Mini Wargaming
Mm-hmm.
has a Frontiers going over
Okay,
on my mini factory that's
okay.
about to end called Armored Bash, which is files for converting toys like toy trucks and cars
Oh,
into playable pieces for games.
interesting.
And it's like a whole bunch of gribblies that you can just go. You go to the dollar store, you get an appropriate scaled toy truck or car, and then you just start gluing these guns and cranes and gribbly bits all over it
Mm-hmm.
until like you have like exactly what looks like a perfect game playable belongs in your game piece that would look awesome as a piece of terrain or even a playable vehicle in your stuff. There's been a lot of kits like this in the past for like crap, I forget the name of the car battle game that is real popular
Car
right
Wars
now.
is what I was thinking of from.
It's newer than Car Wars.
Oh, okay.
It's the Car Wars is the old one. There's a new one. Somebody help me in chat. Somebody please save me in chat. But like this is 28 millimeter scale version of that same thing, whereas the other one was Gaslands. It was Gaslands. Gaslands
Okay,
is the
gotcha,
new one,
gotcha.
where you buy a Hot Wheel car and glue a bunch of like guns and stuff. There's lots of 3D printable Gaslands kits like that,
Mm-hmm.
but these are scaled to 28 millimeter. So
Nice.
you can just find the appropriate Tonka truck and then
Just
turn it into
turn
your
to
next Orc Warlord's buggy or like
nice.
whatever cyberpunk death fortress you need for your game or whatever.
Very
And
cool.
it's just a perfect idea. The tiers are real cheap. The all-in is like $25 for like all the kits. And it's just I love how creative it is. And I anymore I'm starting to get really attracted to using 3D printing to augment traditional stuff and like transform things
Yeah.
into usable game pieces so that you don't have to print the entire thing from scratch. And also like it kind of that like Black Magic Craft super kit bashy nerd in me like really comes forward when I'm like, I can use all these pieces and this and just invent the cool thing I want. It's not just a ready-made thing. There's a whole lot of actual personal expression and artistry into making the exact cool thing you want.
Right. Right. That's neat.
Any shout outs from you?
Just the one. I meant to shout this out last week. It was fortunately this still has a couple weeks on it, so even if you're hearing this on platform release, you still have at least a week to act on it. But it's our friends over from friends, but a really good company, I think. STL Miniatures. This is the second time they've done fantasy props. And it's interesting because it's called fantasy props, but to me it is much more fantasy backdrops. This is greeblies and terrain bits for like really cool taverns, really cool market stuff. This is sort of stuff like it's just gonna make your game look jaw dropping when you have it out. And it's extra, I get it, and it's not the sort of thing you'd want to do every time. But if you really like wanted to like wow people at a convention or whatever, this is that stuff that's gonna like level up your board to that like really like I said jaw dropping extent. And I think the market set's pretty cool. I love the tavern set thing. The all-in is still really affordable. You can buy just the bits if you want, like buy one set. But this sort of thing, I think I missed one of the earlier ones and I kicked myself. And it's in that sweet spot for me where it's not too cartoony, but it is cartoony enough so that like you could mix this with cast and play, but you could also use it very realistically. This almost is style agnostic to me. I mean, there's a style for sure, but like it will blend depending on your paint job with a lot of other things. And I think that's a narrow needle to thread, right? Like to get to that point. Oh, that's so cool.
And it also is like this stuff is like super unique and flavorful in a way that this would not work as a mass produced retail product because like the use case and interest wouldn't work to be able to sustain a print run. Because if you notice like the kits that you can go buy in your local store, they've been generified to be as usable in as many situations as possible so that they can reach a big enough audience to justify like overseas injection molding production,
right.
which needs large numbers. Whereas this, they can afford to make a preserved beholder museum display piece that you can just set up to be perfect for your one unique encounter. And because it's 3D printing, and 3D printing stuff, especially with terrain where you don't have to go completely balls to the wall to paint. Like a lot of the stuff would be very, very, very easy to like dry brushing and speed paints to get the like looking good enough on the table.
Even on this, it would be, to me, that would be black base, zenithal white, dry brush a little extra gray on it, hit with white again, and maybe run some shade on the bottom of it, and it would look fantastic. You know, same thing with the skeleton there. Just use some bone tone and tans, and it would look incredible.
Yeah.
So,
and where I'm going there is like, this stuff is very easy to just be like, I'm going to have this piece of terrain is only going to be usable once for the one cool scene that I need it for, and then it can go in the garbage, or like it can go into storage, or I don't need to worry about this being something I use 100 times to justify buying it. I can just use this for the one time they need to see the preserved, like mummified beholder husk, and then you don't think that you need to get like 100 uses of it to justify buying it from like a Dwarven Forge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I think that's me.
Awesome. Well, if you want to support the show, the best thing you can do is give us a review over on Spotify or iTunes, or if you're watching us on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. All of those things to help boost engagement, help more people discover the show. If you want to find more of our stuff, you can find it over at printyourgames.com, where you'll find links to all of our socials and all of the fun stuff we do. Until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param.
I'm Kristen Sowers, also known as Seventh Mastery, and don't forget to use your